Today, Heather Volchko and Alex Grosso will be discussing high leverage practice number 12, how to systematically design instruction toward a specific learning goal.
Welcome to A Little TLC, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of education. Join our host, Heather Volchko, as this season we focus on high leverage practices, known as HLPs. Each episode will examine a different HLP, an essential strategy designed to enhance teaching and improve outcomes across various educational settings. These practices focus on collaboration, assessment, social emotional behavioral support, and instruction, benefiting all K-12 students. I hope you're ready to be both challenged and inspired because this season is all about mastering the HLPs. This is A Little TLC.
Teachers help students to develop important concepts and skills that provide the foundation for more complex learning. Teachers sequence lessons that build on each other and make connections explicit in both planning and delivery. They activate students' prior knowledge and show how each lesson fits with previous ones. Planning involves careful consideration of learning goals, what is involved in reaching the goals, and allocating time accordingly. Ongoing changes like pacing and examples occur throughout the sequence based on student performance.
For this high leverage practice, we are talking about systematically designing instruction toward a specific learning goal. I've also got Alex back with me, and I'm really excited to see where this conversation goes because he approaches this from such a different lens than I do. So, Alex, for you, when you're looking at systematically designed instruction, what does that mean in your context?
Well, it may look a little differently for you. Once we are in the school, we already done all the initial stuff. We've done our assessment, our observation, we've had all of our data, and now thankfully we've been approved and we can work in the school with our client. So once we're there, the way, I systematically work on these goals, we look at the data we have already. I have my baseline, I create the goals, and now when I'm creating these goals, unfortunately, we do have restrictions depending on the funder.
Mm.
Actually, let me correct myself. For all funders that I typically work with,
Mhm.
there are restrictions. We cannot replace anything that the school should be providing. So when I make my goals, I got to make sure that I'm not overlapping with something the school should be doing already. I also need to make sure that none of the goals that I'm working on are academic. So they don't want us working on any math goals. They don't want us working on actually working on work with a client. So
Mm.
when I'm there, it's essentially we're working on these goals that should better support the client throughout the day, helping them, ensuring that they are doing what they need to do while slowly and systematically fading ourselves out. But moreover, I always, collaborate with the teacher and I always see what goals that they have and I see what the overlap is there. And if it's something that we can work on and we are already working on, my goal is to help supplement that so that way the teacher can achieve those meaningful outcomes for their students. But yeah, I mean, when we're in the school, it's we're kind of have a hand tied behind our back and we also take, creative approaches on teaching certain skills. So, for example, if I can't target a specific skill due to the restrictions of the funder, great way to work on these skills is working on it through either caregiver or teacher training. So,
Mm.
through teacher training, I may not be able to work on staying on task because that could be seen as academic, but I can have a teacher sit with the client and then I can coach the teacher on how to work on that skill. So essentially what I would tell my RBT to do,
Interesting.
but now my teacher is the RBT and he's the one working with the client and implementing that with them. So that's kind of like our workaround. Okay, I can't do it with my RBT, I cannot do it myself, but I can target that with the teacher. And then that's how we may not be able to target everything, but we try our best to target as much as possible so that way the teacher feels supported and they're also learning how to work with that particular child as well. So that's how it looks like for me. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's completely different because when I look at this high leverage practice, I'm just looking at, okay, so I have a student who has a need, right? Like we just need to close that gap, whatever that may be. And then the practice is to do that, like with my instruction. Like, how do I set up my instruction to get them from where they are right now to where they need to be? And in the schools, I guess you're kind of hinting at it, but like, sort of is just assumed that that's my job. And so I have to. So I don't get to say, like, well, that's technically this person's job or that person's responsibility, or like the kid is here, the kid's got a gap. And as long as it's impacting their education, which in schools is very loosely and widely defined. So it's not like, "Oh, that's academic, so that's a school thing." It's literally like if the kid shows up with it and it's impacting their school performance, then it's something we can work on. It has some, wide reaching, very interesting things that then can be interpreted as being kind of under the purview of a school. And I think in COVID, then it also expanded beyond what most practitioners, even like the most caring, just big hearted practitioners out there, some things that were even beyond that then started getting as interpreted as then things that we need to support. And so for me, then it's going, okay, so what are those things? How is that showing up? Where do we need it to go? Like, where are we hopeful that that kid will be able to either perform or, how can they leverage some of those skills that they've got now to grow into skills that will help them in the future? And then it's the art of connecting the dots. So like that systematic instruction is just going, okay, so we know where we are. We know, what we got to, what we're kind of up against or what we're trying to work with. Let's get there, right? Let's make progress. Let's try to move forward in some kind of a meaningful way for our student. But I think that to me, there is kind of the art and science that shows up with systematic instruction where there's the science. It's like my BCBA side where I'm like very data heavy and wanting to see everything aligned and being able to track clear, beautiful trend lines over time and all of that. And then there's the art of it of like, can I get in the mess and can I like see a kid for who they are and then line up those skills and strategies that I've got, or if there's resources or people, like how can I then orchestrate that learning experience to really get them where they need to go? And, like, that to me is that, like, beautiful mesh of, like, systematic instruction. You've got that data backing, you can see and track and, like, rock those trends over time, but you're doing it in a way that you're just getting in the mess with a student and, like, living that, breathing that, walking that with them through it. So, quite honestly, like, I kinda love my bubble compared to how you're talking about yours, because I get to just, like, see it, recognize it, own it, and let's work with it. Like, let's go, right? And I think I definitely have worked with folks that get frustrated because of all of the things. I work with really complex students and students who have a lot of other systems that they're involved in. And so there can be a lot of kind of seemingly like barriers or just like things that are getting in the way, including students that are just like, F off, I'm not doing this, right? Like, I'm out. So, like, even given that, like, I think there's so many cool things that we can do to set the student up to kind of realize their own potential, and then they can jump in to that systematically designed instruction and actually see that growth happening, and then we can kinda work it out from there. But I love it because, like, my doors are wide open, right? Like, it can be overwhelming because there's so many things we can do, but I think it's also really, like, freeing to be able to take a holistic perspective of a student and then pull all those pieces together in some kind of a meaningful way without having to be like, "Well, this is kinda my job, that's kinda your job, so if we kinda both kinda sorta do our own thing, then maybe we can sorta get to the outcome that we're trying to get to." That's just gosh, that sounds so, I don't know, unnecessarily complicated?
Yeah, it definitely is. And it doesn't help that there are, providers out there that are doing the things that they're not supposed to be doing
Yeah, that's fair too.
and going against what the funder has. So when I go into a school and I'm like, hey, this is what we're supposed to be doing, being ethical and adhering to the restrictions of the funder, some schools look at me like I'm crazy. And they're like, but yeah, that guy over there is doing that, and that guy over there is doing that. I'm like, well, I
Mhm.
don't know who the funder is for them, but I'm telling you for this particular client, I cannot. And,
Mhm.
I've had many calls where I got to be very specific about what my role is in school is with different funders because, they see us in the school and they're like, why are you there? Why isn't the school doing something about this?
Mm.
And of course, there's a bigger conversation where, oh, the school should be doing all this. You shouldn't be there. Like the school should be providing all these services. These students are entitled to these based on their IEP and these accommodations. Why are you guys there? And it's like having to sell that and tell
Mhm.
them like, well, this is why we're here. And it sometimes can lead to very difficult conversations. It's very restricting. I definitely want to help more than what we're doing in the school. I definitely want to be able to I don't want us to be seen as a shadow because it could very
Mhm.
easily become that and it'd be like, oh, they're gonna do all the work. They're gonna do the teaching, they're gonna do all the working. No, I don't want that. There's a nice middle ground where
Yeah.
we're there to support, but a teacher still has to do their job and teach the client, and we don't want to overstep that. But there is definitely a middle ground, but again, given the restrictions that we have, we cannot reach that middle ground. So it's more like we gotta be pulled back a little more. So like where you said, I think very nicely, you see it, you observe it, and you do something about it. I see it, I observe it. I can't do everything about it. Like
Yeah.
I'm just there like, I can do some things, and then I have to get creative with other things. And
Hmm.
maybe through teacher training, that's how we can accomplish the goals that you have set out for your student. But I cannot specifically target that as I want to.
Yeah.
So it's always very interesting hearing you talk about it and hearing how you talk about things from your perspective. Because I'm like, man, I wish, I wish, I wish we could do all that. That sounds awesome. I would love to be able to see like a need and all right, yeah, let's target that immediately. But I can't. And it's like I had to kind of work around it and target it in a different way via the teacher training or anything like that. But I wish that this was the case with all funders that I work with. But unfortunately, most of them, I think all of them, to be honest with you, do not
Yeah.
want us doing anything in school.
Well, I think although it's a bit of a sidestep, like the next half of this episode is going to go into all of those details that are like, the sequence of lessons or how do you set up a lesson in a systematic way that then can like, a student can walk through their learning and it's all of that really like nitty-gritty instruction. But I think really the conversation that you and I are having right now is that yes to all of that. Yes, and absolutely to all of that, right? Like that is that beautiful mesh of the art of teaching, of instructing, and then bringing in that data to be able to kind of see, in that systematic way, like, am I structuring it in a way that I know is going to like really result in learning? But I think what you and I are talking about is even like how do we systematically design people to be able to champion different corners of that instruction so that the student's experience is a holistic experience that they are then able to progress through to achieve those learning goals. So like I said, the next half of this episode is all about, in that lesson planning and scoping out like how do I like create that progression of lessons. But at the end of the day, especially if we have co-teachers or paraprofessionals or other specialists that have other things that they can leverage on our behalf, like let's lean into each other's areas of expertise so that then whatever each one of us are allowed to do, we can and we can truly like leverage that for the team, for the kid. And really on the teacher side, like I'm looking at it as then those are things off my plate. So those are things that then like if you've got that, great, own it, run with it, let's go, right? And let's do it in partnership in a way that then I can own, in essence, everything else. Because that's, the life of a case manager is anything that anybody else can't cover, it's all going to fall on me anyway. So I'm always thankful for anything y'all can take off. So I think as we're having this conversation, it's more than just how do we set up a lesson and how do we set up a series of lessons to get a student from, the beginning to where they need to be. But it's how can we do that collectively, collaboratively, and really leaning into each other's expertise on behalf of the student that we're working with.
It's a great question. Yeah, I mean, it's again a little tricky for us, and really the way I've been approaching it in my experience is, and I think you said it perfectly. It's like, hey, this is what I can do. This is what I can teach. This is what I can provide as an asset to the classroom. This is what my RBT can do. This is what I can do, and I'm completely open to like helping in those particular ways. But I also have to kind of again, given the classrooms that I have worked in and, the experiences that some of the teachers already have with ABA and practitioners in the field,
Hmm.
it's kind of like unconditioning the conditioning, if that makes sense. Because
Yep.
just like how you said, you can give when those RBTs are there, those practitioners are there, I should say, when they're there, they're doing whatever the teacher wants. And a little bit to a degree that's too much.
Mhm.
Where, I see, some RBTs sometimes interacting with kids that aren't their kids. They're kind of overstepping some boundaries there. And the teacher is, all for it. The teacher wants that. The teacher's like, oh yeah, this is support for me. But then when I come in, it's kind of more like, no, we're not supposed to be doing that. I'm here for him and I'm also here to work with you. But beyond that, I cannot do anything else. If you leave this classroom, I have to leave this classroom. Like I can't be
Mhm.
here alone with 10 kids, and
Right.
you'd be surprised situations like that have happened. And that's kind of like we butt heads in those situations because it's like At the end of the day, it's a liability. I can't, if anything happens to these kids, I'm the only adult here, something
Yeah.
that falls on me. So the way that I've really approached that is just like I tell them what I can do. Like, hey, this is what I can do. I'm here in the classroom based on the restrictions of the funder. This is what I can do. I'm gonna work on these skills, this skill, this skill, this skill. Now, when it comes to doing these skills, I'm going to need you to come here, or I'm going to need your teacher assistant to come here, or I'm going to need your para, whoever the case, whoever it might be. I'm going to need them to come here and then we're going to work on this together. The RBT might be there, provides behavioral supports in case anything happens, they implement the intervention. But for the most part, like they cannot do what you may need them to do and what you may have other practitioners doing. And that tends to get a little tricky just because, we're being, I guess, too ethical or we're adhering too much of the restrictions, but ensure that we're not crossing lines and we're not creating anything of concern to like the school itself. We don't want the school to see us and be like, okay, yeah, cool, they got this. I'm like, no, 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 we don't got this. Unfortunately, we got what we can do, but you gotta handle the things that you need to do. And yeah, that's always been the trickiest part about us being in a school because we want to achieve those same goals that they do, but given that they're already conditioned with other providers and how those practitioners have been, working in their classroom, and then we come in and then we're kind of like, no, we're not going to do all that. It does make it a little tricky to achieve those meaningful outcomes with them. However, I'm not speaking for all schools. I'm also speaking from my experiences, and I've had great experiences where, I tell a teacher all this and they're 100% on board. They're like, yep, that's fine. That makes sense. No problem. I'll do what I gotta do. And, they're 100% all for it. And they're very open to the support that we provide. And they're also very open to like learning, everything that we're implementing with our client. And to a greater extent, they might even carry that out in their daily life, when they're working with other kids. They're like, oh, hey,
Hmm.
maybe this intervention that I learned for him might help there. I'm not sure. At least I'm providing them with tools. And those have always been the best experiences because it was never like I had to uncondition anything. It's just like, I tell them this and like, okay, cool, let's do it. And that has always been the best because I've always gotten the most success with those clients in their classrooms because the teacher is carrying out the interventions that we have carried out, we have designed, and we've been able to achieve those meaningful outcomes that they have for their client. I'll never forget that I was at a school a year ago, and the teacher that we had, she was incredibly sweet. She would always stay after school. She wanted to meet with me, do teacher training. She wanted to learn as much as possible. And then the next day I would see her during supervision and she would be applying everything that we went over. And she was like, you would just see her face light up because she was like, "Oh my God, I'm getting through to him. I'm actually he's actually doing what what we're trying to work on." And I was like, yeah, I know. That's it's pretty effective, I know.
It
So
works.
those
It
are
really
always the
does.
greatest. Yeah, hey, I might be onto something, I'm not sure. Those were always the greatest, stories because it was success for all parties, success on our end because we're doing what we're doing. We're adhering to the restrictions of, what our funder was we're working for. We're not overstepping, we're not replacing anything the school is doing. And then, success on the teacher because the teacher, like I physically saw her like contacting that reinforcement of like actually getting through to our client and her student, and like she was like happy. She was like, wow, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm like, yes, I know this is awesome. Like I'm happy to see her being able to use those tools and actually hitting her goals. Like her,
Yeah.
her goal for that particular client was just, yeah, very poor fine motor skills. So her goal was just to have him hold a pen and then, not pen, on marker, I'm sorry, and then just trace a square on a laminate sheet. And she was trying for so long, so long, so long. And eventually, when we were through our teacher trainings, the next day I saw her and she was like impressed. She was like blown
Mhm.
away. She was like, look, she even like took a picture of it, sent it to his mom. But it was a very beautiful moment because it was like, yeah, like we collaborated. She told me what she was struggling with. I told her, hey, this is how we would approach a situation like that, given with what we're doing. And together we were able to combine our experiences and she was able to achieve one of the many goals that she had for him. So yeah, I mean, that's for me, it's just dependent on for all my experiences. It just depends on the setting that I'm at, how motivated people are to, kind of collaborate and work with me, and also how understanding they are that I cannot do some of the things that maybe other practitioners are doing. And once we get all that and we are in complete understanding, from there, that's where we've been able to make the most meaningful outcomes for their student and our clients.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I always enjoy collaborating with you because you bring such a different perspective on how to do the work, but we share that same like heart desire to see students served well, and that includes by serving their families and serving their staff. So thank you for talking about what this looks like in your context and kind of opening up the can of worms with me this week. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me on.
Are you ready to choose a transformative learning journey that allows you to absorb, reflect, and apply new knowledge at your own pace? This week, it's Workshop Week. Join us for a collection of pre-recorded, immersive learning experiences designed to empower you with practical skills and moments of introspection. Our workshops are designed to be the perfect blend of structured learning and personal growth. Each session includes dedicated time for reflection and application, so you can truly internalize what you've learned. We want to invite you to head over to thresholdlearning.org, your one-stop destination for all things TLC. Here you'll find this episode's show notes and blog pairing, our entire catalog of ACE-accredited self-paced courses, an ever-expanding bookshelf of resources, and anything else we've talked about. See you there. Attention educators pursuing behavior analysis certifications. Supervision with TLC is designed for educators like you, offering remote supervision with school-based BCBAs that fits into your schedule instead of the other way around. Our supervised fieldwork approach allows you to earn your hours right in your classroom alongside your teaching responsibilities. Benefit from affordable rates, month-to-month scheduling, and comprehensive supervision, all 100% remote. Our school-based BCBAs are here to guide you every step of the way. So why switch jobs when you can stay in education and grow professionally? Explore more at thresholdlearning.org/supervision and see how we can help you succeed.
Students with disabilities need instruction that is more systematically designed compared to their typically developing peers. Research has identified key elements of effective systematic instruction that should be integrated into lessons and units. Among these, three core components stand out: having clear instructional goals, sequencing knowledge and skills logically, and teaching students how to organize content. Effective instruction starts with clear, attainable learning goals stated in specific, measurable terms. Teachers carefully select and sequence content to build on what students already know. This means teaching simpler skills before more complex ones, introducing frequently used information before less common material, and ensuring that prerequisites are mastered before moving to advanced concepts. Teachers also focus on teaching clear, unambiguous information before more complex material, and separating content and skills that are similar in form or function to prevent confusion. Additionally, teachers make explicit connections between content and skills across lessons to help students link prior knowledge with new information. This approach allows students to see relationships between facts, concepts, and principles, which aids in retention and deeper understanding. By systematically designing instruction with these principles, teachers can better support students in achieving their learning goals and facilitate meaningful application of knowledge. Systematic design of instruction is a crucial, high leverage practice that guides educators in tailoring their approach to meet the needs of students with disabilities effectively. This method emphasizes the importance of structuring, ordering, and specifying instruction in a way that aligns with each student's unique requirements. For students with disabilities, this precise approach can significantly enhance their learning outcomes. Before diving into systematic instruction, effective educators collaborate closely with colleagues and families, as highlighted in high leverage practices 1 and 3. They also rely on data driven decision making, guided by HLPs 2, 4, and 6, to ensure that instruction is responsive and impactful. The core elements of this systematic design are intricately linked with other HLPs, such as HLP 16, which underscores the use of explicit instruction, and HLP 11, focusing on identifying and prioritizing both long and short term learning goals. By integrating these practices, educators can craft well instructed and adaptive learning experiences that are both meaningful and accessible for their students. Designing instruction that effectively guides students toward their learning goals involves a nuanced approach that integrates clarity, structure, and adaptability. Teachers who excel in this area are adept at translating broad, long term objectives into specific, actionable lesson targets that are clear, measurable, and aligned with students' needs. Using a structured framework like the ACCOMPLISH model, which stands for antecedent condition, conspicuous behavior, clear criteria, observable, measurable, positive, linked to the general curriculum, individualized, socially valid, and high reaching, can significantly enhance this process. This model encourages teachers to set goals that are specific and measurable, clearly defining what students should do to demonstrate their learning and how it will be assessed. For instance, instead of just stating that students should improve their reading skills, a goal might be to read a certain number of words per minute with a specified accuracy rate and answer a set percentage of comprehension questions correctly. This level of detail ensures that both students and teachers understand exactly what is expected and how progress will be measured. Moreover, instruction should be strategically sequenced. This means introducing fundamental concepts and skills before moving on to more complex ones, teaching similar skills separately before requiring students to distinguish between them, and focusing on commonly encountered content before less frequent material. By systematically structuring lessons to build from simple to complex, teachers help students make meaningful connections between new information and what they already know. Effective teachers also incorporate principles of explicit instruction. They connect new content to overarching big ideas, use clear and direct strategies to reinforce these connections, and provide scaffolding support through a model, lead, test approach. They engage students' prior knowledge through guided discussions, integrate new content with existing knowledge to foster higher order thinking, and use judicious review to reinforce and build upon previously learned material. Tools like graphic organizers can further aid in organizing and visualizing content, helping students manage and integrate new information. Additionally, ongoing data collection allows teachers to monitor progress and make necessary adjustments to instruction, ensuring that teaching strategies remain responsive to student needs and yield the best possible outcomes. In essence, systematically designing instruction requires a blend of strategic planning, clear goal setting, and responsive teaching practices. This approach not only facilitates students' achievements of learning goals, but also fosters a dynamic and engaging learning environment. Supporting teachers in systematically designing effective instruction involves a multifaceted approach from school leaders. First and foremost, it's crucial to ensure that educators have a well rounded set of instructional strategies, including explicit teaching methods. This foundational knowledge enables teachers to craft lessons that are both structured and responsive to student needs. Leaders should assess whether educators possess the necessary skills and strategies to design effective instruction. Based on this assessment, providing targeted professional development and coaching is key. This support can focus on areas such as developing high quality learning targets using the ACCOMPLISH method. This method serves as a practical guide for setting clear, measurable goals that align with standards and individual education plans, or IEPs. Moreover, it's important for school leaders to review these goals to ensure they meet high standards for quality and relevance. This involves checking that goals are specific, actionable, and appropriately challenging. Feedback on the quality and specificity of these goals helps teachers refine their objectives and improve their effectiveness. Additionally, a robust plan for evaluating student progress is essential. Leaders should support teachers in establishing and managing effective data collection practices. This ensures that teachers can monitor student progress accurately and make informed decisions to adjust instruction as needed. By focusing on these areas, school leaders can significantly enhance the ability of educators to systematically design instruction that meets diverse student needs and promotes academic success. Despite substantial research on learning goals, lesson sequencing, and visual content displays, few studies have explored these practices in isolation. This makes it challenging to gauge the specific impact of each element on overall intervention effectiveness. What we know is that these practices are seldom applied individually. They are typically integrated into well designed lessons and instructional units. However, Even with meticulously crafted lessons, achieving satisfactory outcomes for every student isn't guaranteed. Therefore, ongoing monitoring of student progress is crucial. If students aren't progressing as expected, it's important to scrutinize the lesson goals, sequencing, and clarity of connections between concepts. These factors could be the root causes of inadequate progress, highlighting the need for systematic component analysis to refine our understanding of these instructional practices. Thanks for listening. Next week will be all about high leverage practice number 13, how to adapt curriculum tasks and materials for specific learning goals.
Hey, before you jump back into your busy life, consider dropping a like and follow Threshold Learning TLC on Facebook and Instagram. And if you like our show, share the podcast with your colleagues. A personal recommendation is by far the best way to promote the podcast. Let them know that they can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else they catch their podcasts. Just be sure to leave a rating and review on your favorite platform. You can also email us at info@thresholdlearning.org. We always enjoy connecting with fellow educators and champions for educational justice. You can find everything you're looking for at thresholdlearning.org. See you there.